I'm so sorry for the title of this video, but it's a riff on the title of an excerpt from a podcast featuring Freddy Wong. Now, Freddy Wong is an OG YouTuber. His channel Rocket Jump was massive back in the day. They did all these amazing action short films, collaborations with like Jimmy Kimmel, Key and Peele. From my perspective as a fan anyway, Freddy Wong like made it as a YouTuber. So it was pretty jarring to hear what he had to say on this podcast when I heard this maybe about 4 years ago.
We did a lot of stuff on YouTube. We set records for crowdfunding. We did a web series and blah, 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 blah. Who cares? Nobody gives a
Yeah.
That's what it is. Sorry, here's the hard lesson that I've learned. Anything you've done in this context, nobody cares. Because at the end of the day, there's only two things that matter in doing stuff in the traditional Hollywood sense, which is, did you make anyone any money? Did you win anybody any awards?
You know, when I watched this video 4 years ago, it really changed my perspective as a YouTuber and where my space was in this creator economy. Because as Freddie showed, YouTube might be a dead end. I've been making videos here on YouTube for 18 years now. My first video came out in February of 2006. My YouTube career is old enough to vote. I've only been doing it like professionally though for about 8 years. And in that time, I've made video essays and vlogs that I deeply care about and have been able to share with millions of people from around the world. But here's the thing though, right? It's all been on YouTube. And by design, it's a creator economy siloed off from the music industry. I'm a musician after all. And YouTube is viewed still to this day with a degree of suspicion.
They look at our stuff and they're like, oh, you guys have done some stuff on YouTube? Oh, YouTube, the thing my kid watches? And it's like, there's that, what?
Yeah, the stigma's never left.
The stigma's never left.
In my experience, the creator economy is in an antagonistic relationship with the music industry because I don't make them any money. I make Google money. It's just me out here with my camera and my editing software. Nobody has staked their professional reputation on my own. I don't make anybody else any money.
Did you make anyone any money? Did you win anybody any awards?
In fact, the music industry thinks that YouTubers take money away from them, and then they try to take that money back. The industry in which I want to work, very much like the industry that Freddie wanted to work in, does not care. 1.8 million subscribers, and no one cares. Very dramatic, I know. I do apologize. I don't mean for this video to be a pity party, but I have been thinking a lot recently about longevity and what it means to make art in a community and for an industry, whether it's the creator economy or the music industry, the two things that I'm involved with. And when I take a look at musicians and the music industry and I see how long people will make art, how deep into their careers they make art, I have some thoughts about it, you know? Roy Haynes, for example, is a jazz drummer that played with Charlie Parker, and he's still going. He's 98 years old. When I look at Roy Haynes, I can see that if I focus on music, I know that I have a creative future until the end of my life. Could you ever imagine a YouTuber going that long? Could you imagine a YouTuber going until they're 98? I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy. I feel like a lot of the experiences that Freddie was talking about in this podcast as a YouTube filmmaker and how that related to the movie industry parallels my experiences as a YouTube music educator and music creator and my experiences with the music industry.
It's easier said to be like, oh, just don't do it traditionally, because fundamentally there's a lot of things when you get into the details of it that still tie you to some degree of traditional approach.
For the past several decades, I have been inundated with messaging, primarily from tech companies, that says that as a musician, we don't need to worry anymore about the old way of doing things, the old gatekeepers of record labels and music journalists and PR firms, because now we can connect directly to fans. But I hope every musician here knows that that is a total myth, because there are gatekeepers, much stronger gatekeepers than there ever were. They're just not human anymore. Recommendation algorithms serve the same function as record label executives and movie industry producers. They're there to determine what art will be the most commercially valuable.
Did you make anyone any money? Did you win anybody any awards?
Once they determine what art will be the most commercially valuable, they will deliver that art to consumers willing to pay or consume that art at the agreed upon price. If you don't appease the gatekeeper, the recommendation algorithm, the movie producer, the record label executive, your art doesn't go anywhere. And so as a creative, as a content producer, as a musician, you have to constantly be negotiating your relationship to the gatekeeper of your art in that given economy. And with the creator economy, that gatekeeper is not human.
Have you ever connected with a human?
Now, some people might say that the recommendation algorithm is simply a reflection of audiences' desires. So they are the gatekeepers. And that's true, but those desires are mediated through social media itself. And social media is designed to get people to consume as much art, as much product as possible. And for somebody creating stuff, that can be pretty alienating. You're so far removed from anybody who cares. 1.8 million subscribers, and no one cares.
That's the hard part right now, is that I always feel like we're in between.
This podcast excerpt came out about a decade into Freddie's successful career on the internet. And I really don't think it's a coincidence that most of the YouTubers who are quitting or scaling back, like Tom Scott or Matt Pat, for example, had a successful career for about a decade or so. In fact, a comment left on the YouTube video for this podcast excerpt called that shot 4 years ago. So now we live in the era of YouTube quitting and people making videos about YouTube quitting. I'm so sorry for contributing to that, but hey, I had things to say, so you're stuck with me making this video. So 4 years ago, around the time I saw this podcast, I made a retrospective of my then 14-year career on YouTube. And I started thinking about building something else that did not put me in this antagonistic relationship with the music industry and with a recommendation algorithm, because it just was not sustainable. I was getting burnt out, and tale as old as time. YouTuber burns out, right? There were two solutions for me here. The first is Nebula. Nebula is, of course, the creator-owned streaming service, blah, 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 where there are still gatekeepers. They're just humans. They're my fellow creators making the determination on what goes on the platform and why, like a very curated aspect. And I think creative people working in a community with a shared value is ultimately the most sustainable thing. And that's something that you don't really get with YouTube and TikTok and other things. It's just all content, right? All content. The second thing that I did that I think is very strange given a lot of the messaging that you hear these days is that I decided to focus on my own original jazz fusion music with my band Sungazer. Because as ridiculous as it is, looking at the shiny new creator economy where you can reach millions of people around the world, and then the old way of doing things with touring and record labels and all that, quite frankly, only one of those things seemed like I could do until I was 98 years old. And it definitely was not the creator economy. I just saw much more of a future for myself doing it the old-fashioned way, doing it the way that, people have been doing it for many decades beforehand.
We all decided to go down the direct-to-DVD horror movie route, which we were all embroiled in back in around 2009, 2010. And we decided to all just be like, let's make movies, feature films that are cheap and can turn a profit. Those alternate reality versions of ourselves are having a better career in Hollywood right now than us.
Sungazer started 10 years ago, and I do wonder where we would be if Sean and I really focused on Sungazer a decade ago. But since then, since pivoting towards the traditional way of doing things, with a booking agent who works with promoters, who work with venues, we hire, tour managers, we got a manager, we work with the music industry.
Did you make anyone any money? Did you win anybody any awards?
Because we make the music industry money now, which is kind of a mercenary way of thinking about things, but it's the truth. I don't have the same relationship to the music industry anymore that I did when more of those people saw me as just a YouTuber. 1.8 million subscribers, and no one cares. Freddy Wong was on this Corridor Crew podcast at a transitional point in his career. He has since gone on to run a successful D&D podcast, Dungeons and Daddies. I'm a fan. It's a funny podcast. As I can tell it, his audience has changed as he changed and has gone on to different opportunities. The same way that, my audience will change going on into the future. Not everybody who likes me talking about Celine Dion and modulations and all that will like me playing bass in my jazz fusion band, and that's okay. So depending on how you see it, I already quit actually 2 years ago. I stopped caring so much about maintaining a strict upload schedule, and I only make videos when I feel like I have something to say, or I don't know, when I feel like it. And honestly, I've been a lot happier in that regard. I think I'll continue to make videos for as long as I have things to say, and honestly, I feel like I will for many years to come. Musicians can make music for many decades, and they can have a space in that industry. But as we've seen, YouTubers don't. You know, it almost always ends in burnout, right? I have elders in the music industry, people who have been doing music for a lot longer than I have. And so I look to them for creative and professional advice. But I only have peers on YouTube. Nobody has been doing it as long as I have. And it feels alienating to see so many people quit and burn out in that field. My goal is not to be a YouTuber until the end of my life. My goal is to be a musician until the end of my life. My goal is to be Roy Haynes. I want to be shredding until I'm 98 years old and beyond. Because, you know, 1.8 million subscribers and no one cares, but I don't give a shit. I kind of just want to play bass and hang out with my friends and share in that community, because I think that's the thing that really matters and the thing that I really am passionate about, right? I'm not sure if this video made any sense. I just have a lot of things that I'm feeling. All right.